I came back to the land after 22 years in the Army. The quiet fields, the cracked soil, the barn that leaned like it had been carrying secrets for decades, all of it was mine to reclaim. My father's farm had been neglected since he passed. My brother sold his share after the HOA gave him grief, and I was left with what I could buy back. I rebuilt fences, pulled weeds, and coaxed life back into the old Massey Ferguson tractor he left behind. I wasn't chasing peace. I was rebuilding it. But what the war zones hadn't taught me was how ruthless a suburban homeowners association could be. Stone Creek Estates had sprung up like mold on the western edge of my property. Identical beige homes, manicured lawns, neighbors who worshiped their mailboxes like shrines. And at the head of it all was Karen Netter, HOA president, queen of rules no one asked for. She showed up at my door 3 days after I moved in, clipboard in hand, eyes sharp with judgment. She talked about visual covenants and aesthetic standards as if her reach extended past the property line. I told her plainly, my land wasn't hers. She smiled like I was a fool, but I could see the calculation in her eyes. She wasn't done with me. The notices came next. Typed papers slipped under my door, claiming my tractor was a safety hazard, my tools an eyesore. A drone buzzed over my field, taking pictures that ended up in their community newsletter with captions about dangerous equipment near children. She wanted me boxed in, humiliated, maybe gone. I ignored her. But ignoring a woman like Karen was like throwing water on a grease fire. It only spread. Soon code enforcement came knocking. They looked at the maps, at the boundaries, and left embarrassed. She escalated anyway. Neighbors gave me cold stares. Eggs splattered against my mailbox. And every morning when I started the tractor, I could feel her watching from her window. Hatred clutched like a weapon. Harvest season pushed things into open war. At dawn, I fired up the old engine, and the dust rose like smoke over the field. Karen appeared on her lawn, filming, shrieking about pollution, about children trying to nap. I reminded her this was farmland, always had been. She hissed back that I was disturbing the peace. It was only noise and dust to me, but to her, it was war paint. Then the stunts turned darker. Someone spray painted "Keep It Quiet" on my fence. Bags of lawn clippings dumped across my property line. Anonymous complaints about fuel storage and water contamination brought inspectors to my door. They left with sheepish smiles when they saw my records, but Karen's campaign was relentless. I installed cameras, 3 angles covering the barn, the gate, the road. I wasn't just working the land anymore. I was documenting a battlefield. The moment she lost control came fast. One morning, her Lexus barreled down the gravel easement, too fast, too reckless, and plowed straight into my tractor. The crunch of metal was sickening. The windshield spiderwebbed as she picked up a rock and hurled it through the glass. Then she called 911, claiming I'd attacked her with machinery. I stood there, silent, because the camera hidden in the fence post had caught everything. When the deputy arrived, she smiled like victory was already hers. But when I handed over the flash drive, the ground shifted. I thought she'd retreat. Instead, she doubled down. A week later, I uncovered zoning records at the county clerk's office. Stone Creek's access road agreements were invalid. They had no authority over my land, none over the gravel road. She had smashed her car into a legally parked tractor. On top of that, I found HOA filings riddled with holes, missing contracts, unaccounted money, checks signed directly to her nephew. Years of slush fund activity. I printed copies and dropped them in every mailbox in Stone Creek before dawn. By noon, the neighborhood's online forum was on fire. Residents demanded answers. Accusations flew. Some sided with me, saying their kids liked watching the tractor go by, that maybe food was worth more than patio cushions. Others turned on Karen, asking where their dues had gone. By evening, she was screaming outside the clubhouse while the board voted her out. But she wasn't finished. People like Karen never are. She filed a lawsuit against me. Emotional distress, defamation, interference with community integrity. My lawyer Jeff and I filed a counterclaim, harassment, property damage, malicious prosecution. I had footage, timestamps, documents stamped by the county. She had only her voice, and her voice was losing power. Court was the final theater. Karen came dressed like a politician, spitting polished lines about me being a menace. Jeff dismantled her case piece by piece. The videos of her crashing into the tractor, The vandalism, the falsified 911 call, the financial ledgers showing she'd siphoned money from her neighbors. The judge leaned forward, granite-faced, and asked her one question. Had she ever disclosed the payments to the board? Her silence told the truth. Her suit was dismissed with prejudice. She was ordered to pay restitution, legal fees, and fined for false reporting. The HOA underwent an audit. The board was restructured. Neighbors began to look me in the eye again. Some apologized. Others brought food, asked about planting, even waved when they passed the fence. The war was over, at least officially. But Karen didn't leave right away. She lingered like smoke after a fire, posting rants online, circling in her Lexus. Finally, one cold Thursday, a moving truck arrived. By sundown, her house was empty, her title stripped, her empire collapsed. No goodbyes, no final shot across the fence, just absence. For the first time in years, silence settled across the land. Not the silence of tension, but of something earned. The fields rested, cover crops sprouted, and I walked the rows without looking over my shoulder. My cameras stayed up, though. Some habits die hard. Neighbors invited me to their first open HOA meeting, transparent and nervous, trying to rebuild trust. I showed up once, cornbread in hand, sat through polite applause, then went home early. That night, I found a note wedged in my door. Thanks for defending more than just your land. No signature. Didn't need one. Peace, I realized, isn't the absence of conflict. It's what you fight to protect, what you earn when you refuse to bend. Karen thought she could weaponize rules, fear, and reputation. What she didn't understand was that I'd already faced worse, walked through fire, and returned to soil that held my family's name. Some wars end with treaties. Some end in ruins. Mine ended with a scarred tractor, a fractured windshield, and a field still standing tall. And when the winter frost touched the rye and children's laughter drifted down the lane, I knew the land had survived, and so had I.